Now, as we said, the problem is not guns, but it's suicidal shooters. It's suicidal people with automobiles or with guns or with hammers or whatever. And we need to ask the question that Alex asked peers, and that is, what makes what are the links to these suicidal shooters? And of course, Alex brought that up, but he didn't get any response from Piers Morgan. Now, Mike Adams of Natural News did look into this carefully, and so did somebody else who is no longer around. A prominent rifle manufacturer posted a detailed link connecting psychiatric drugs to school shooters. This guy died in a mysterious car crash days after the posting. And Mike Adams points that out, and he says, sure, that could be a coincidence. It might also be a coincidence that Feinstein just happened to have a detailed gun confiscation bill ready to release following the Sandy Hook shooting. It might also be a total coincidence that, according to Google, the United Way Sandy Hook donation support page was created on December 11th, 2012, a full 3 days before the shooting. It could also be a coincidence that NBC reported Adam Lanza's AR-15 rifle was left in his car, never used in the shooting at all. It could also be a coincidence that Bank of America slammed home an economic embargo against online gun parts retailer in the days following the Sandy Hook shooting. It could even be a coincidence that Facebook suspended or shut down the accounts of hundreds of prominent people who advocated the Second Amendment, including our accounts at Natural News, he says. And finally, it could be a total coincidence that police radio recordings seem to indicate that there were multiple shooters involved in Sandy Hook. What are the odds of all of these coincidences existing simultaneously? Virtually zero. Well, Melissa Melton noticed that the term that Alex used when he talked about pharmaceuticals' involvement in making people suicidal, the term he used was mass murder pills. She noticed that was trending on Twitter. So to explore that further, she wrote an article, and we've got Melissa right here in the studio right now. Well, Melissa, what are mass murder pills?
Well, that actually is a question I decided to look up because after Alex was on Piers Morgan, that began trending on Twitter. The fact that he said that he wanted to blame the real culprit in these shootings was the suicide pills, the mass murder pills, and CNN even decided to mock him in an article they posted yesterday mentioning that that was a big conspiracy. But let's look at a few facts first, because what I found was actually pretty disturbing. Americans actually consume more psychotropic drugs than any other nation in the entire world. That's first. Secondly, antidepressant use has risen in this country by 400% just since 1988. So it's a lot of people. Current figures that I saw, it's 1 in 10 Americans, or 11% of Americans over the age of 12 are now on these kinds of drugs. And the side effects, let me just list some of these side effects for you, because it can be pretty scary here. Confusion, hallucinations, anxiety, agitation, mood swings, impulse control disorder, paranoia, psychosis, and hostility. And a Canadian judge even recently ruled that a 15-year-old boy who stabbed one of his friends did that largely because he was on Prozac. So a Canadian judge recently ruled these drugs can actually cause children to commit murder. And in 2007, the FDA voted to update the black box warning on these antidepressants because they found in their own studies that young adults between the ages of 18 and 24 were committing suicide in much higher numbers than other people on these drugs. So they wanted to include increased warnings about that. And a black box warning is like the strongest warning that the FDA can give actually a drug. And so I decided to look into that even further now in relation to these mass shootings. Mother Jones' website actually prepared a list of data from 1982 to 2012 of these mass shootings, and of 62 of them carried out by 64 shooters, a majority of them had mental health issues. 41 of the shootings involved mental health issues and mental illnesses, and 7 more that were listed as unclear had family members who said that they had mental health issues or were on medications. So it was a pretty high number of them that had these kinds of issues. And as Dave Kuplian reported for WND, there's a gaping hole in media reporting on Sandy Hook because, quote, "It is simply indisputable that most perpetrators of school shootings and similar mass murders in our modern era were either on or just recently coming off of psychiatric medications." That's what he says. And another study done in 2010, actually, of the top 10 legal drugs that are linked to violence, 5 of them were antidepressants, and another 2 of them were for ADHD. So 7 out of the 10 were these types of drugs. And you had just mentioned the story from Mike Adams from Natural News. Well, it's interesting. He was posting that, writing that, I guess, right at the same time that I was working on this. And John Noveski posted that list on his Facebook of over 40 incidents where primarily young people committed murder or suicide while on these types of medications. And as you recall, the FDA warning that I just mentioned, that was for that same age group. And the majority of the people on this list were of that age group. I just want to read a few that I was able to go and verify from his list. Eric Harris, age 17, first on Zoloft, then Lovix, and Dylan Klebold, age 18, committed the Columbine, Littleton, Colorado shooting. They killed 12 students and 1 teacher and wounded 23 others before killing themselves. Klebold's medical records have not been released, so we don't know if he was on something or not. Jeff Weiss, age 16, had been prescribed 60 milligrams a day of Prozac, which apparently is 3 times the average starting dose for adults. When he shot his grandfather's girlfriend, and other fellow students at his school. Corey Badsgard was 16. He was at Wahluke High School. He had taken Paxil, other reports say Effexor, when he took a rifle to his high school and held 23 of his classmates hostage. He reportedly had no memory of that after it happened. Christopher Pittman, age 12, murdered both his grandparents while taking Zoloft. Kip Kinkle, age 15, was on Prozac and Ritalin when he shot his parents while they slept, then went into his school the next day and opened fire on his classmates, killing 2 and injuring another 22, and that was right after he started his Prozac treatment. Jeffrey Franklin of Huntsville, Alabama, was on Prozac, Ritalin, and Klonopin when he took an axe and murdered his parents and then went after his siblings. And that's just a few that I was able to verify. As you know, this is part of that list. Here's another part of that list. And as Noveski's post ended, he asked, what drugs was Jared Lee Loughner on, age 21, when he killed 6 people and injured 14 in Tucson, Arizona? What drugs was James Holmes on, age 24, when he killed 12 people and injured 59 in Aurora? What drugs was Adam Lanza on, age 20, when he killed 26 and wounded 2 in Newtown, Connecticut? All within that same age range. And I decided to even try and look into it further, and I found a website called SSRI Stories, and I found this. And my computer shut down twice trying to print this. What this is 110 pages of stories from all over the world of people that have been on these drugs and either committed a mass murder, a homicide, a suicide, they've self-harmed, or they've threatened to kill people on these drugs. And this first page here is all just school incidents. And it's not just shootings. Some of these are knifings. There's a machete attack on here. So,
that's the thing. We can take people's guns away, but if we don't address the root causes of a lot of these things, and that is psychotic behavior, people are going to use anything, including cars. I mean, you can kill mass amounts of people with a car driving it through a crowd.
Or a knife, or a hammer, or...
That's right.
Exactly.
That's right.
But the correlation here cannot be overlooked, and the mainstream media is not talking about this. So while they're quick to judge Alex for what he said, they need to actually go and take a look at this. But instead, they're just jumping right on our Second Amendment, trying to take away our rights, pretending like these are isolated incidents. This is not an isolated incident.
Right.
It needs further study. So.
And all Alex had time to do was just to interject that in as a term, because they had strict, you know, he wasn't going to be given a chance to talk. If he didn't shout at peers, he wasn't going to be given a chance to talk. And certainly, in the allotted, even if it had been a civil discussion in the allotted time that they had, they weren't going to have enough time to talk about
well,
this time of connection.
Well, you've seen how Pierce treated Larry Pratt when he tried to be civil about things.
Oh, absolutely.
It's just, it doesn't work.
Well, CNN is not going to talk about one of their biggest corporate sponsors, and that's the big pharmaceutical companies.
Of course not.
And they're not going to take a look at gun crime that's in the large cities. But the whole point is that the mainstream media is trying to create an atmosphere of fear. They're trying to get people afraid so that they'll run to the government for protection and give up their rights, give up anything that they've got in order to have a sense of security. And that was another thing that Alex referred to very briefly when he started talking about sharks. Of course, he didn't have time to flesh that out. But, you know, it's the whole idea is the irrational fear of sharks, largely created by Jaws, other movies, and the media. Every time somebody gets bitten by a shark, it's international news. But your chances of dying by shark bite are extremely rare, even if you're swimming somewhere where there are sharks. But it's all about creating a climate of fear.